let's go big. Donovan Clingan. Which is again maybe a guy that we haven't talked about a little bit, and maybe a guy who could be going number one or could be sliding six to Charlotte. Like this is wide open right now. Some buzz recently about him going to Atlanta number one. Do you buy it, Chase? I don't know if I do.
See, I honestly like it's either I don't honestly I don't know if I buy anything at this point. Like they've been running
Exactly. It's
it was
smokescreen
Sar for a
season, man.
while, it was Risa Shea for a while, now it's Klingon. Like I honestly wouldn't be surprised if you get, maybe like Stephon Castle or some other prospect. We get like maybe a small little murmur about whether or not they have a chance to go number one. I feel like Atlanta just doesn't know. So that's kind of the problem and why this is surfacing right now. And I mean, I don't blame them. This is a tough draft to have number one, but
I think and like if they trade back, I could see it, right? Trade back to
yeah.
someone like but I don't know. It just doesn't feel right to me. I feel like no one was talking about Klingon at number one, and now all of a sudden people are. And yeah, I didn't quite see it. But anyway, let's go Donovan Clingan. I'm gonna flip the coin. Here we go. And it is heads again, so it's me. I'm gonna take the cons. So I'll let you go first with the pros, and then I'll come in with the cons after.
So the first point on my notes for Donovan Clingan, enormous human. He is going to be around 7'3" in shoes, 282 pounds at the combine. He has like an all-time drop coverage center profile. He has great instincts and mobility in that scheme setting. He can cover. He plays the cat and mouse game really well and covers space when a guard like gets a step and can get some sort of like floater look. And he also is obviously a very, very good interior defender. In college, he was a really good shot blocker. He's not the most like vertical or explosive as you could expect for a guy that's as big as he is, but being that big, he doesn't really need to be because he's going to have a size advantage over pretty much everybody in the NBA that he plays against, other than Rudy Gobert or Victor Wembanyama or Kristaps Porzingis, basically some of the tallest people in the entire world, much less the NBA. On the offensive end, Clingan finishes at a 65% clip for his career from the field, which he played 2 college seasons, but these were like pretty high volume, high minute seasons. His block percentage was over 12. He just doesn't make many mistakes on either end of the floor either, which I think is a huge appeal to him. Like, and that's something for a center that like is pretty impactful for me. Like, you don't have to be like some great playmaker or anything, but if you just don't turn the ball over, like fumble passes out of bounds, make dumb fouls, like goaltend or something like that, which he doesn't really do all that often, like it just makes your like floor so much higher. And he's, I think, going to be somebody that's able to impact the game at a really, really high level while not making that many mistakes either. He obviously like devours space inside in the post. He's big, strong, light on his feet, good footwork. Plays really hard as well, which is a trait that I think everyone on that UConn team shared. Like him, Steph Castle, Cam Spencer is like a psychopath. Like all these guys, Alex Caravan. You can say that same thing about all of them. I think that's just a UConn trait these days. Just a hard guy to move around. Obviously has the passing flashes from like the elbows in a stationary position, which is very intriguing. If he can make any sort of like additions to his offensive skill set outside of play finishing and like short roll floaters and push shots and stuff like that, I think he's going to be somebody that maybe his like scheme versatility or lack thereof is going to be overemphasized and is just going to be able to provide enough value in enough different areas for somebody his size to where you're going to be able to play him in pretty much any situation apart from, a smaller lineup against a team that has a big that's 6'8" or 6'9" and is a floor spacer. To me, he is the best. Given if you don't project if you do project Alex Sarr as a center, then I think he's the second best. But if you consider Alex Sarr more of like a front court player, I think Clingan is far and away the best like pure 5-man in this draft. Has a very high floor, while the ceiling may not be quite as high, I guess, as you would expect for somebody who is in talks to go number one. I think he has like a more skilled version of Andrew Bogut, and if that player stays healthy, obviously that's a long-term NBA player that is nearly a double-double for like a decade. So I think pretty much any team would take that type of ceiling if it was available to them outside of the top 3, basically. So I like myself some Donovan Clingan. Very good player. It's unfortunate the Hornets would be adding their third non-shooting 7-footer if they ended up having to draft him.
Chase, I have a question. Who is the better draft prospect, Mark Williams or Donovan Clingan?
Donovan Clingan.
Why?
I think anyway. He's a little bit bigger. He is. I think generally just like a more physical prospect. Neither of them shoot. He had slightly more playmaking flashes in college, but I think Mark is only a year older than Clingan, and now Mark has actually flashed a little bit of that himself in the NBA, like being able to make some nice bounce passes to cutters from the wings and the elbows and stuff. But I think in coming into the draft, I think Clingan has a pretty noticeable advantage over Mark, even if I had Mark a little bit too low in hindsight, realistically, because I think I had him at like 16.
So Mark Williams has a 9'9" standing reach compared to Donovan Clingan's 9'6" standing reach. So he is bigger. He's more athletic. I would say he's a better lateral mover. And I would say Clingan probably benefited from playing in a UConn environment that was like perfect for him, right? They won national championships 2 years in a row. Like it was a perfect offensive system. They had all the spacing. I think there was a lot of things that went his way. He had a guy against Edey who he kind of had the opportunity to go up against and showcase himself. That equally people are profiling Edey to be a backup center, right? So should we really be holding that much stock in that? If you look at their college stats, they are almost identical. I think Clingan scored a little bit more, but like shot a worse free throw by 15%. Clingan for his career shoots 56% from the free throw line. A lot of his upside I find is theoretical. He might be a shooter. People talk about that. Well, he shot 25%. Well, he barely took any threes in his 2 years and took 25% this year on the ones he did take. And like say, the free throw percentage is normally a good show of touch. He doesn't have 3-point volume. He doesn't have track record. He doesn't have free throw percentage track record. There is not a single shooting indicator that suggests he will ever shoot the ball, apart from people saw him in workouts and it looks pretty good. People said the same thing about Willie Cauley-Stein. It's theoretical for me. He might be a playmaker. You talked about flashes out of the post. Okay, there were some flashes, but like he was 1.5 assists per game in like one of the best offensive systems that was designed, right? There are obviously going to be free cutters going in the lane, which looks great when he hits. I don't think he is going to be some type of playmaking hub, not a Sabonis, not a Şengün, not a Draymond Green, not a Nikola Jokic. I think he might be like a fine, functionable passer, but I don't think there is anything like that you really want him to have the ball in his hands as an offensive decision maker. I don't think he'll ever be that level. So then when you come back to it, he is just a really big guy who rebounds and does all the traditional big man things well, which is fine. But is it fine enough for the number 6 pick when you've already got a guy who probably does a lot of those things, I would say, to an equivalent level in Mark Williams? Now, that's not even to mention that he used to be a guy who struggled to stay in shape. He's had injury issues both years in college. And standing at the size that he does with his old kind of weight issues, I think there is a real flag there, amber flag for like durability and his ability to stay healthy, which is not something the Hornets can really afford to play with. Just simply look at last year. Sanogo was the guy at UConn, starting at center, who Clingan was behind. And he had a fantastic year, right? And yeah, he went to the G League this year and didn't touch the NBA court. Like, that system really does help people look great. And it could be a system thing that helped Clingan look like maybe one of the best prospects in this year's draft. Offensively, he is far from like fluid. He's like mechanical jump hooks. He lacks any touch in his game. He kind of relies on overpowering people than really rather outskilling people. His athletic testing at the draft combine, he had the second worst shuttle run and lane agility of the whole combine. Like, he was one of the worst testing athletes there was there. So you look at the likes of like Zach Edey, people say he's too slow. Well, what do you say about Donovan Clingan? So there are some real concerns there that I think he could just be like Walker Kessler with great PR. And that is not someone that you want to be taking right at the top of the draft, especially like you say, when you've already got a Nick Richards, a Mark Williams filling in with that skill set. And what type of message would that send to Mark Williams? I think we've all seen he's like a key part of this team's franchise, like going forward. He's attending the finals games with Brandon Miller. He's being named in the core by the owner. He's here to stay. I don't think the team have got any cooler on Mark Williams. And I think you create a potential conflict of interest there where you draft someone over him just a couple of years after taking him. So that is my anti-Donovan Clingan argument.
I want to say just one thing too. I agree with a lot of the points you made, honestly, because it's a very fine line that you toe being a type of player that's as big as he is while not really maintaining any sort of like outlier athletic ability, which as of now he doesn't seem to have, while also not being a very skilled player either. But how did we let this happen again with a guy that has never shot threes in college and just took them in the open gym? And now it's like actually snowballed to like a genuine like mainstream narrative that he may shoot threes. I can tell you this from attending G League practices every practice for the last 3 seasons. Every single player that is even of G League caliber takes tons of open threes in the gym, dribbling behind their back, between their legs, doing step backs when there's nobody watching. Like that's just what basketball players do. They're the most skilled players in the world. They can all dribble between their legs and take a step back 3, or take 10 spot up threes from above the break and make 6 of them in on a good day. Like I don't, like you said, there is no indicator that Clingan is ever going to shoot, and I don't think it's something he has to do to be good. Like he just has to finish plays efficiently, develop some sort of short roll playmaking, finishing, like so he has some sort of threat away from the basket. He doesn't need to like space the floor or anything. Like he's so big and so impactful near the rim, you almost wouldn't want him that far away. Like the Brook Lopez comparisons that he gets are just like crazy to me. They're just totally different types of like human beings, like athletically. Like it's wild that it has snowballed to that degree, and it's almost it's unfair to him because now it's like if he doesn't shoot, people are going to be like, oh well, he never developed the jumper. That's like a knock on him. But no, he's 7'12" with and 300 pounds. Like he doesn't need to have a jumper. He just needs to be able to finish and defend, and I think he'll be able to do that at least.
Where's Clingan on your board?
Degree. He is number 6 for me. I've got him like just outside the top 5, like probably the beginning of like another tier, honestly. In that, after that top 5 is probably like a tier break for me, I guess. But he is like still a very highly ranked prospect for me.
I have him 4. I have to. I really like Donovan Clingan. That hurt me there. If I sounded convincing, I was convinced myself, but like that hurt me to do that.